All right, let's dive in. Today we're talking about a really fascinating idea called the judgment mirror. The basic premise: those moments when we're at our most judgmental of other people, well, they might actually be the moments we can learn the most about ourselves. Okay, let's get into it. Have you ever noticed this? Really thought about it? When we mess up, we have the full story. For me, there's always a good reason, right? There is context, there was a motive you didn't see. But when somebody else does the exact same thing, our perspective kind of shifts. For them, it's just an excuse. It's just plain blindness on their part. Or worse, it's just total irresponsibility. It's wild, isn't it? So yeah, that leads to the big question. What's the deal? Why the different standards? Why do we give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, like every single time, but we so rarely give that same grace to other people? Now, here's where it gets really interesting. What if I told you this double standard isn't just some simple character flaw we all have? What if it's something more? What if it's actually a mirror? Something that's designed to show us something we'd otherwise never see. And that brings us to the core idea here: God's diagnostic mirror. The concept is that our sharpest, most intense moments of judgment, those quick flashes of irritation or when we get super defensive, they aren't just random emotional flare-ups. They're actually signals that God uses to reveal what's really going on inside our own hearts. And this really gets to the heart of the issue, doesn't it? As it says in 1 Samuel, we humans, we can only see what's on the outside, but God sees the heart. So our judgments are almost always based on incomplete information. We're judging what we can see, the actions, but God's looking at the intentions and the motives that we couldn't possibly know. So what is this mirror showing us exactly? Well, it's reflecting back all the things we're trying so hard to hide, sometimes even from ourselves. It shows us our deepest fears. It points out the things we've secretly made into idols. It shines a light on the parts of our lives where we refuse to let go of control. And maybe, most importantly, it shows us exactly where we need to grow. You want a perfect example of this in action? Look no further than King David. So after David's huge sin, the prophet Nathan comes to him and tells him this story, a parable about a rich man who steals a poor man's only beloved lamb. David's reaction? He is furious. He says the guy deserves to die, his judgment is swift, it's absolute, and then, boom, Nathan holds up the mirror and says, "You are the man." David had just passed sentence on himself, without even knowing it. Now, David's story is pretty epic, but this mirror works in our everyday lives too. It's especially good at hitting us right in our blind spots. So let's look at two of the most common ones it exposes. Okay, first up, defensiveness. We think of it as our armor, right? Our protection. But really, it's more like a fortress we build that ends up hardening our own hearts and cutting us off from other people. But here's the key: that feeling of your walls shooting up isn't a failure. It's a signal. Think of it like a blinking dashboard light telling you there's an area God wants to heal. And let's be real, it is an automatic response. It happens in a split second, way before we even have a chance to think. My defenses can go up faster than my Wi-Fi reconnects after a storm. You know what I'm talking about. All right, blind spot number 2. This one has a kind of fancy name, but the idea is super simple. It's called eisegesis. All it means is reading into things what we want to see instead of what's actually there. And this isn't just some problem for Bible scholars. It's a life problem. We do it all the time, in conversations, in our relationships, in how we see the world. So what's actually going on here? Well, our suspicion of other people's motives, that feeling when we're so sure they're twisting the story, it often becomes a spotlight that's actually shining right back on our own fears, our own insecurities, our own distorted way of seeing things. Okay, so we get it. We've got these blind spots. The mirror shows us some pretty uncomfortable stuff. Now what? How do we actually take these moments of knee-jerk judgment and turn them into real, actual opportunities to grow? Well, it really comes down to a simple 4-step process. First, when you feel that judgment or defensiveness kick in, just slow down. Take a breath. Don't react. Second, you have to ask yourself why. Why did that bug me so much? What just got triggered in me? Third, reflect on what that reaction is telling you about you. And finally, use that new insight to actually grow. And that why part is everything. Here are some really powerful questions you can start asking in those moments. Why am I giving myself grace in this situation, but I'm completely denying it to them? What fear or old wound inside of me is shaping how I'm interpreting this? And this one's huge. Where am I only listening for what I want to hear instead of what's actually being said? So here's the big takeaway, the big reframe. That flash of anger, that instant defensiveness, that harsh judgment, that's not the real problem. It's the invitation. It's the starting point for really knowing yourself and for real transformation. Let me just leave you with this final thought. There's a bit in Proverbs 26 that gives kind of conflicting advice. It says, sometimes you should answer a fool, and sometimes you shouldn't. The real trick, as the joke goes, is realizing in that moment which one you are. And that's exactly what the judgment mirror helps us do. It gives us the chance to see ourselves clearly before we open our mouths.